Okay. Okay. So are you apt to find the captain here, or are you going to find the captain here? Right. And it's here, right? And why is the captain here rather than there? That's the point of today, because business owners, most business owners I meet, are in the guts of the business. They're checking inventory, they're doing billing, they're invoicing, they're going out to the loading dock, they're on job sites, whatever it is, and they're not spending any time here. And this guy's responsible for navigating the ship. He decides where it's going and how to deal with issues that come up. And so another way of looking at it is, you got this fishbowl, and inside the fishbowl are all of these jobs these are the employee type of jobs, counting inventory, visiting job sites, preparing taxes, whatever the business does, those are those activities. And business will grow, and they'll get to a certain point because the owner is really and is really good at this sort of stuff, or the team is really good, including the owner. But it plateaus because the owner only has a certain amount of hours, and his or her total time is focused in this stuff. And that's the engine room. But what they're missing is all this stuff around the peripheral, the team, the financials, the leadership, the marketing, the vision. This is what will take the business from here to here. But most business owners don't see it because they're so inside this glass bowl, and they think they've never had any training, and they've never seen anything different. So if I'm a CPA, I'm preparing taxes all day long, or I'm cutting hair. And that's good to a point. But if that's all they do, these are the things that they're neglecting. And these are the things that will take the business to the next level. And so this is the bridge, so to speak, back on the SS Dewey. You all know me. I'm with Action Coach. We're the world's largest business coaching firm. We got over 1,000 coaches around the world. This is our definition of a successful business: a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you, meaning the owner. Meaning you have instilled a lot of what we're going to talk about into the business so that the business can run without you. You can take 6 weeks and go to Tahiti and know that when you get back, the business will be as running as well as if you had been in the business those 6 weeks. And most business owners can't say this. Most business owners have structured themselves so that they're indispensable to the day-to-day operations of the business. And that in and of itself then becomes very limiting because they can't leave. You can't take 6 weeks because the business just isn't going to survive. So one of the first things I always like to talk about with people is this is Jim Rohn. And I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Rohn, but he's he's just recently passed on, a famous American entrepreneur and motivational speaker. He says, change within will always result with change outside. Never wish your life was easier, wish you were better. Work harder on yourself than you do your job. And what this is getting at is the power of the mindset. There's so much that's that little voice in the back of their head that says you can't do that. You've never done these things. They're not thinking. They're not growing intellectually. They're just staying where they are. And this is a formula that we use to talk about the formula for change. And it says, in order to increase what you have, so this could be your goals. This could be where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years, whatever that is, your have. If you stay doing the same stuff and you're the same person, this equation does not equal. Your haves have gone up, but you haven't done anything to increase your dues, nor have you done anything to increase your be. And so we're going to be talking a lot today about actions and doing, but you can't keep the same mindset if you're thinking like a sole proprietor and your goal is to own a $15 million business. That's a disconnect. And so you got to be focused on your be and your thoughts as well. And so, Amanda said that I own a business. I'm a business owner, I think is the words you said, Amanda. Um, these words are the most important words, I think, in the English language because they define who you are. Everything you say after I am is how you're thinking about yourself. So if I say, if I own a CPA firm and I say I'm a CPA, that to me says that I think my role is to do taxes and to work on numbers. It's very different if I say I own a CPA firm because you've now interjecting the word ownership, which to me implies I'm not as much doing the day to day as I am growing and leading a business. So that those two words are critical. And they're the basis of affirmations and changing how you think about yourself. You know, you can be an anchor if, I'm not good at selling. Well, then you're never going to get good at selling if that's your attitude. And you're going to have a hard time in running a business if you can't sell. So keep that in mind. When you're thinking about when you go to networking groups or when you do your 60-second commercial, I am an owner. I own a business instead of I do the work of the business. Another issue I find owners dealing with a lot of times is this. I call this above and below the line, and it's the owners are the most looked after person in the business, and so they've got to take responsibility. They've got to take accountability. They got to take ownership. As soon as they start dropping below the line and they start blaming people, they start making excuses, they start denying things, that you start seeing a deterioration in the respect and the morale of the people around them. So ask yourself, think about your five best friends and where are they? Are they up here most of the time or are they down here? Because if they're down here, they're going to kind of have a tendency to suck you down into this space. And you might want to think about, well, you know what? Maybe I need to spend a little bit less time with this person and find some more people to be up in this space to kind of give that positive motivation and accountability. So, and then the last thing on mindset I want to focus on is these words. I know all of us, I don't know about Amanda, but I know Susan, Cindy, and I have had kids. Amanda, I don't know you. I don't think you have kids, but you have pets. Although I guess
Yeah, I just
pets
have that.
can't really communicate. So we've all heard these words from our kids. We've all probably thought these words to ourselves. Um, and I love an example. My son Ryan, one day I wanted to show him how to bang a nail into a piece of wood. And he said, "Dad, I know how to do that." He'd never picked up a hammer before. He'd never dealt with a nail. He didn't have a clue how to do it. But as we get older, we say, "Oh, I know how to do things." We cross our arms. My point here is we need to stop using those words "I know," because if we use those words "I know," we're blocking out what the other person is about to say. And that could be the thing that would take us to the next level, but we just blocked it out because we thought we know. So whether you use something like, "Isn't that interesting?" or just keep an open mind instead of closing it by saying, "I know." Because all of these things we're going to be talking about today are going to may be pushing up against your comfort zone. And there may be that tendency to say, "Oh yeah, I know. I've done that before. It didn't work." Well, did you try it this way? Just keep a real open mind is my ask from you for today. So these are the levels that we work on with business owners. And they're the elements of a business. There's the mastery level, the money, the delivery, the time, the destination, meaning the vision. The niche is all about generating cash. Leverage is all about operational efficiency and maximizing the efficiency. And then team obviously is all about team. And when you get to this level, you can start bringing on a general manager. You can start backing out of the data, and take on more, maybe look for another business. You've got somebody else running this business because this thing is running really smoothly now. This is now where you can take 6 weeks and go to Tahiti. But so these are all the different elements we look at in a business, not necessarily in this order, but at some point we got to at least touch on them to make sure that they're working smoothly. And the big one is the financial side. Do most owners, they may know their revenue, The concept of cost of goods sold, they don't know. If you're not familiar with any of these terms, you ought to read up on them because they're critical. If you're in business to make profit, and if you don't know these numbers, you might be missing something. Delivery, delivery is all about consistently delivering results. And this is McDonald's. They're not the best hamburgers. They may be the best fries, but they're not the best hamburgers. But look how successful they are, because every time you go in that McDonald's, you know what you're going to get. And so it's not going to be really good, but it's going to, the kids love it. And so it's the consistent delivery. And how many times have you gone to a restaurant? The first time it was great. The second time it wasn't very good. The third time it was awful, and you stopped going back. Well, and it might be the owner in a case like that isn't checking on, surveying clients. He's not asking how things are going. And he or she is in the back, maybe cooking the meals and just not aware of what's going on. So when you start spending time focused on strategic stuff, these are the things you need to be focusing on. Time. Time is a huge cause for burnout in businesses. I run across businesses all the time that say, I've got Mondayitis. I'm lost. I don't have a vision. I'm losing my motivation. And what can I do to get out of it? And they're they're on that hamster wheel and they don't know how to get off. And it's because all day long they're doing the day-to-day. And the day-to-day just gets more overwhelming, and they spend more and more time in the day-to-day. And meanwhile, the business isn't growing as much as it could be. Darren Hardy said, distraction is draining our focus and productivity. Meaning we're sacrificing what matters the most by doing what matters the least. Do you ever find yourself doing that? You got to get something done, but it's not easily done. And I'll just take 5 minutes and do this other thing. Well, that 5 minutes becomes 30 minutes. And before you know it, at the end of the day, you never got done the one thing you really needed to get done that day. And so be conscious of, am I making the best use of my time? And here's some interesting facts I found. 3.2 hours per day is spent on business emails and 3.4 hours per day on personal emails, according to the Huffington Post. Adults spend 23 hours per week texting. Yikes. That's almost 3 full days, 3 work days just texting. 4.7 hours per day on social media. Think about how distracting all that is and how much that distracts us from what we could be doing that's perhaps more important to us in growing the business. But we get on these distractions. So, here's some strategies I talk about with owners around what they can do to manage their time better. Blocking off time, setting aside hours of a day to focus on certain things. Whether, maybe it's every Wednesday from 9 to 11, I'm going to devote my time to marketing. And every Thursday afternoon, that's my time to be on LinkedIn. And maybe I'll do 3 hours on LinkedIn. And on Monday, and don't let things kind of get you off those schedules unless they're emergencies. I don't know. Has anybody read The One Thing? It's a book by Gary Kelly. You've read it, Susan? I love that. In that book, he talks about always be asking yourself, what's the one thing I can do this week that by doing it will cause everything else would be easier or unnecessary? That to me is kind of a way of easily asking myself, am I making the best use of my time? Or am I squandering it by going out and looking at some website for a new automobile that came out? Oops. Whoa. Calculate your hourly rate. Do you know what your hourly rate is? And if you do, are you doing activities that could be done by somebody at a lower hourly rate? And in most business owners, the answer to that is absolutely. They're doing things they shouldn't be doing because it's easy. It's because they don't like to delegate. It's because they don't know how to delegate. It could be they don't have the right people on board to delegate to. All of those things are resulting in the owners oftentimes getting involved in activities that are um, less than what they should be doing. They have a lower hourly rate associated with them. And last thing on strategy, Darren Hardy suggests focusing for 90 minutes, intense focus on one thing. Get it done, take a break, and then come back in. And whether you do 90, whether you do 60, doesn't matter. But the idea is it's focused. It's the phone is off. I'm focusing on this one thing because this is the most important thing I can do today. So those are ideas around time. And this is one I always work with owners on, and it's around vision for the business. Alice asked the Cheshire Cat, I can't read it because of the, hold on. Let me change my view. Would you tell me which road I should take? The cat replies, where do you want to go? Alice says, I don't know. Then the cat says, it doesn't really matter, does it? That's where I find most business owners. They don't have an idea as to where they want to go. And so they don't have any basis for deciding what's important to me and what's not, because it doesn't matter. So I start wandering, there's no direct path because I don't know where the destination is. As soon as people get clear on where they want the business to be, then it becomes easier to start making decisions. And if what you're asking me to do is not going to take me to my destination, then I'm going to delegate it, or we're just going to delete it. I'm not going to get involved with it. So those are things that, here. So if you don't have clarity around where you're going, you're wandering. You don't know where to focus. And so it's hard to make decisions because, I'm not aiming at anything. It might seem like a good decision, but actually it was the very opposite of what you should have done because it's going to take you away from where you ultimately wanted to be. Are there any questions? No. Okay. Does this kind of make sense? What I'm trying to show is if you step back from your job of doing the day-to-day and you think about some strategic things in your businesses, these are the things you need to be thinking about because these are the things that'll drive your business. The next is the area around cash and marketing. Most business owners can tell you how many customers they have, what their revenue is, and how much profit they make. And they think those are the most important things. I think that these in red are the most important things to think about. And so you work with a lot of nonprofits. And so it might be, it may be different. Maybe it's donors instead of customers. But the idea is the things in blue are outcomes. And to influence them, we got to influence what's in red. And these are the areas that business owners need to be focusing on in order to increase those items in blue: customers, revenue, and profits. And so to illustrate, we'll just walk through this. Here's a customer. They have 4,000 leads a year. They close 25% of them. So every year they generate 1,000 new clients who buy twice a year, $100 each time. So that's $200,000 in revenue. 25% profit margin. So they made $50,000. But if we can get them just to increase the areas in blue, they've just picked up, the areas in red, they've just picked up 210,000 new customers just by a 10% increase in leads and a 10% increase in conversion rates. And I've got like 60 strategies on leads and 70 on conversion rates. Most of them don't apply to any one customer, but there are 5 or 6 nuggets in there that I work with clients on, and we think through and we focus on this stuff. And the difference can be dramatic, as we'll see. If we can do that for each of the areas in red, the blue is up by 61%. And so don't pay attention to the number so much. It's the percent increase. So if you added 2 zeros, if this was a $5 million company, then they just grew to an $8 million company in 12 months by focusing on what's in red. And so this is where we set goals around different strategies. As I say, I have about 300 strategies for areas in the red. And it's a matter of figuring out which ones are best for the clients and then setting up some timelines and action steps. And before you know it, we start seeing these numbers. So that's the marketing level. The leverage level is all about, this is the operational level. This is about systems. And systems are all about saving yourself time, energy, and money. In other words, they're processes. Susan, I think when you and I talked a little while back, you talked about having some processes in place, but oftentimes you don't like to follow them, if I remembered right. But the whole idea is, if this is about having a sales process. Every time the phone rings with a lead, this is what we do. We set up an appointment. We send out this email. Prior to the appointment, we make a phone call to say we're coming, da, 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 da. And it doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter if it's Tom is doing it or Susan. Everybody follows this process all the way through to the decision being made to award the business. And so we can measure activity levels at each one of those boxes, so to speak. But the idea is we hone it to make to the point that we know that if we get in 100 leads, we're going to get 49 new clients, because we've tracked, we have this process in place. We know what the numbers are over time, and it always generates a 49% close rate, or whatever the numbers are. It's the same thing on your receivables and handling receivables. It's the same thing in dealing with customer service. It's the same thing on developing careers for your employees. All of that needs to be processed. We say you should systemize the routine. Anything that's routine should have a process built around it, because that is another way of allowing the team, the business, to run itself, so the owner can go off to Tahiti for 6 weeks. And here's some areas to think about in that. Do you have a vision statement? I'm working on a client right now around developing a vision for his business. He doesn't feel like the team views him as a leader. They view him as someone that's doing the work of the business. And so the very first thing we're going to do is define this, and then he becomes the owner of the vision, and he becomes the one that works with a team to kind of carry out the march towards the vision and the mission statements. Culture statements, another area. Culture statements are all about, those are your core values. These are the things that I, the owner, and the team have identified as being important to my business, and every single person that wants to work here has got to comply with those core values. Flowchart processes, SMART goals, all org charts. Do all of you have, or do the three of you have org charts in your business? And if you do, great. I would then suggest you need to develop it for 5 years out. So think, where do I want my business to be in 5 years? And what's the organization need to look like in order for me to be there in 5 years? And the value of that is because then I can start figuring out, I can prioritize my next hire and the hire after that. And instead of reacting, okay, so if I need to be at 5 million, I'm going to need a financial guy. I don't have one now. So that might be my next hire. And then I'm going to need to build up more salespeople. And so you can kind of lay everything out ahead of time. KPIs, key performance indicators, all about helping you understand what's happening in the business. I think of these as being a dashboard. Your automobile's dashboard tells you how fast you're going. It's telling you if you're getting low on oil. It's telling you the temperature in the engine. It's the same thing here. Maybe these KPIs are helping you understand, looking at the number of leads that are coming in, because if the number of leads start dropping, you're probably going to have sales is going to start dropping, which means revenue is going to start going down. And so it's a way of looking into the future by monitoring a couple key metrics. And this talking about flow charting, this is a flow chart we created for a client, um, to help them, in their renewal process. Step by step with action steps underneath who's going to do each thing and what happens. And then we can come in and we can say we had 50 people here, they all 50 transitioned to here, 50 here, but 35 got a quote. Well, what happened between this step and this step? And let's dig into it and find out why we lost 15 people that could have gotten quotes. So, and it happens this way all the time. It's not like, well, this is the rainy day version, but if it's a sunny day, we follow a little different path. And if it's Jack that's doing it, it's a different. This is the way it's done. So that's what I mean when I talk about processes. It's step by step documented. Team. Most employees are motivated, energetic, committed, and enthusiastic and loyal, except for the 8 hours they work for you. That's Tom Peters. And so why do you suppose, any idea as to why that is? We've probably all been in that boat. We've probably all worked for people and felt that very same way. I know I have when I was in corporate banking. But to me, the reason, a key reason is that the owner is so busy focusing on the business and customers, they neglect that right there. And that's where they need to be focusing their time and attention, on the team, because we call this the business cycle. The owner focuses on the team by hiring the right people, by training them, by listening to them, by empowering them, by giving them good technology, by compensating them properly, by coaching them, by helping them achieve their objectives. The team in turn will be motivated, inspired, and empowered, and that will be passed along to the customers, who in turn will help grow the business, which in turn helps the owner. But so often the owner is all in here and neglects the team, and until the last minute, and then they think, oh, we got to hire somebody, so we'll just we'll go hire. I know my wife talks about a friend who is looking for a job. Let's go hire that person. And it's not the right person. And then they wonder why they have average performance. And then they wonder why they have to fire. They have a high turnover because they got to lay the person off because the person was never right in the first place. And it all stemmed back from the fact the owner hadn't identified what the ideal candidate qualities are, what the job description is going to be like, and da 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 da. They just went out and reached out and hired anybody. And so I worked a year or so ago with an owner who that was the situation. They got so, when someone left, they were so anxious to hire someone to fill the vacant seat, they didn't hire the right people. And so they had turnover. And as soon as I started getting them to understand, slow down on the hiring till you find the right person and treat them right, and they'll be with you for years. And that's exactly what happened. They started doing that, and the turnover went down dramatically, and they got better quality workers, and therefore they went from an average product up to a higher quality product. So it's about getting the right people into the right seats. So this is all about, so I guess to kind of pull all this stuff together, I hope that I've gone through this very quickly, but I hope in so doing that you understand that that owners need to be looking at some of the things, if not all of the things, that over time that we've talked about, because that's where they're going to really drive the growth of the business. They'll no longer be like this, and they'll be more like this, and so in concluding, I work with owners to help them get to this point. And it's one of those things that it's not easy for owners to do on their own, because they're inside that fishbowl, and everything all they see is what's inside the fishbowl. But all the things we've been talking about are outside that fishbowl, and they just don't see it because they never had any training in that sort of thing. But that's the sort of stuff that will help the owner take the business to the next level so that they can be here, enjoying the week in Tahiti or 6 weeks in Tahiti or wherever this is. And so to help them get a feel for that, I offer to sit down with any business owner and spend 90 minutes, 2 hours with them, just talking through, what are exactly what we worked on. And we'll go back and look at that model where we had leads times conversion equal new clients times average dollar. And we'll plug numbers in and we'll start looking at what the business could look like if they spent some time focused on the business instead of working totally in the business. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So are there any questions? I mean, are there any questions? No. All right, let's see. You guys
not a question, just a statement that, I mean, yeah, it's easy to, as a strategist to running a business, not to do enough. But I do think, yeah, it's some of the just time management in terms of blocking schedules and so forth, just force it. It's just unless you plan for it. My approach to business development is pretty simple in that I kind of know the handful of most influential leaders and funders and just go to lunch.
Yep, right, got it.
I have the challenge of I don't necessarily want to grow my business exponentially, to sort of just manage what do I want.
I get it.
As I think about life more broadly than running a business, but certainly as you're trying to grow a business and you do have the vision, I mean, that you're spot on.
Cindy, think about the nonprofit, the executive directors you work on with nonprofits. I mean, I would think that they would be in the equivalent of inside those fish bowls.
Yeah, I mean, I coach leaders on all these things, and you're right. You're spot on in terms of where people get stuck and where they don't think strategically, and so it's all good advice and good reminders to me as I, even though I don't want to grow a giant business. I mean, I could potentially find a way to I found some business from people that are retiring consultants that just send me their pipeline. I could find a junior. I could find a junior person to not necessarily buy out my business. I could. I mean, I could probably have an income stream from that. But it's good. It's good advice. I mean, obviously, you got to start with where you want to go as a business owner. That I think that gets in the way of a lot of founders. I've worked with a lot of founders. What really do you want, and how does that fit your whole life? You have to have a whole life perspective. When it's affecting your life so intimately, 24/7.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Amanda and Susan. It's good seeing you again. Any questions? Susan, I know we talked. It sounds like you're doing a lot of this stuff, so kudos to you.
Well, thanks. The question I have is around, when you're talking about hiring, assistants or hiring people, it takes the time out of what you're doing to hire people, and then finding the right person, and then, training that person. So it is kind of a catch-22 when you want to start, delegating some things. One, I could relate to not knowing how, not wanting to, and then not having the right person to delegate to.
Only at the beginning, and then it's so stinking worth it.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, that's I guess what
I love my team so much.
And you invested initially in them a lot, right?
Yeah. I definitely I think in this case, one of the things that from my past experience that I came into owning the business with is that I had done a lot of team management. And I also really took note of how employers treated me that I didn't like. And so I really tried to create a space that people would want to work. And so I feel like I have a team that is highly motivated, and I have to regularly tell them that I'm like, no, you need to go home. You don't work extra hours. Go home. You've done enough. Thank you so much. Go home. They go so and above and beyond that, like, I buy them random taco days and stuff like that, just to say thank you. And but when I was onboarding them, it was very much like writing out everything that they were going to be in charge of. And then we picked a few things to start with. And I was like, when you get comfortable with these, we'll add on a few more. So they knew what the vision was, but they also knew they weren't responsible for everything. And at first, everything went by me. So there was like more of a microscope on it. And they steadily, it was like, as they got comfortable with things and felt like what I called being able to take emotional management of it, like they were fully responsible for that activity. I did not have to think about it anymore. Then they could take on new activity. And we steadily built what they were comfortable taking on mental and emotional responsibility for within their position. And they feel very empowered. And I don't have to think about a bunch of things in my business. I actually don't know how to do some of their processes anymore. I gave them, like, I try to empower them and like do a process that works. These are the outcomes that we want. I'm not going to micromanage you. And could I figure it out? Sure, but I don't need to, and I don't care to.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
love
it's
my
hard
team
in the,
so
on the
much.
beginning. In the beginning, it's hard, isn't it? But the alternative is if you don't do it, then you're going to be stuck doing it on out.
The first time I could go on a trip and I got to disconnect because I can run my business from my phone. Everything can forward to my phone because we use Google Voice number and all that stuff. And so I, in the very beginning, would be in Florida running the front desk on a Saturday from my phone so that people could be in the office doing what they like, trying to do massage. And it was just exciting the fact that my business was making money when I was out of town, but I was still running it.
Right.
So that was a
Right.
huge thing. That was one step. But then the first time that like I was going out of town, they looked at me and they said, "Do not check your phone. We will only call you if there's a fire." And I was like, "Wait, okay, sure." And I did not, I disconnected all the things from my phone, knowing that I didn't need to see what was happening back and forth. They would contact me. And it was the most liberating thing. My business was functioning. Now I can't do it for 6 weeks yet because I am still the bookkeeper. And so they help set up the payroll, but I have to go into the bank and issue it. But aside
getting
from
there.
that one thing, my business could run for 6 weeks.
Excellent. All right. Well, I said we'd be done by 12:15, and it's 18 after. So I apologize for the extra 3 minutes, but
You're like
thank you so much
Amy.
for your Thanks for your participation. I hope this added some value.
Yeah, thanks,
Absolutely.
Jeff.
Yeah, I jotted down a couple of things. I was like, "Ooh, this is a good next step for us."
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great one.
Thanks so
Everybody.
much, Jeff. It's
Bye-bye.
really
Take care.
nice to see you,
Bye-bye.
Cindy.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.